Hello and welcome to My Daily Trivia. I'm your host, Danny. Today is Monday, September 25th, and I hope that you are having a wonderful day. I hope you had a great weekend. Hope everything went well, and I hope your week is off to a good start. Now, if this is your first time listening to the show, I want to say welcome. My Daily Trivia is a 10-round quiz show with no specific themes, no specific topics, and no specific categories. But guess what? We do have a new episode every day, Monday through Friday, and each day gets a little bit harder. So today is, of course, Monday. It's the start of the week. I know things can be a little difficult on Mondays, and so for that reason, we bring you the easiest day of the week. Now, of course, if you find this episode to be a bit too challenging, well, I encourage you to listen to it anyway. As a matter of fact, I think you should listen to every round this week. You never know, you might know some pretty challenging things, and you might even learn a few things along the way. If, on the other hand, however, you find this episode to be a bit too simple, well, tune in tomorrow. We're going to make it a little bit harder. So, without any further delay, let's get into today's round of questions with question number 1. In the Twilight book series by Stephenie Meyer, what type of supernatural creature is Edward Cullen? And Edward Cullen is a vampire. Twilight is a 2005 young adult vampire romance novel by author Stephenie Meyer. It is the first book in the Twilight series and introduces 17-year-old Isabel, or Bella Swan, who is endangered after falling in love with Edward Cullen, a 103-year-old vampire who's frozen in his 17-year-old body. The book was the biggest selling of 2008, and in 2009 it was actually the second best selling, losing only to its sequel, New Moon. As of 2008, Twilight had been translated into 37 languages. Now, I personally never read the books. I did see the first movie, I believe. It was such a big hit at the time, it was hard to avoid. But I know that it was one of the best-selling books of all time, and so clearly it's a book that people should read. But that was Twilight, and that was a vampire. That was Edward Cullen in Twilight. Moving on to question number 2. Today, you can buy everything on Amazon. But when the company first started, what kind of product was Amazon selling? And the answer there is books. Amazon was a bookseller. Amazon is an American multinational technology company which focuses on e-commerce, cloud computing, and digital streaming. Amazon was founded by Jeff Bezos from his garage in Bellevue, Washington on July 5, 1994. Initially an online marketplace for books, it has since expanded into a multitude of product categories, a strategy that has earned it the moniker, quote, the everything store, end quote. And I believe that moniker is a pretty accurate description. I think you probably could get just about everything on Amazon these days. But before that, it started out as simply a bookstore, an online bookstore. Question number 3. What is the largest river in South America? And that river is, of course, the Amazon River. The Amazon River in South America is the largest river by discharge volume of water in the world and the disputed longest river system in the world, competing with the Nile. The Amazon River is so large that it represents 20% of the global riverine discharge into oceans, and the Amazon basin is the largest drainage basin in the world, with an area of approximately 2,700,000 square miles. Now that's equivalent to about 7 million kilometers squared. So, once again, the biggest river in South America, in fact, pretty much one of the biggest rivers in the entire world, is the Amazon River. Question number 4. What is a glacier primarily made of? And the answer there is, of course, ice. A glacier is a persistent body of dense ice that is constantly moving under its own weight. A glacier forms where the accumulation of snow exceeds its ablation over many years, often centuries. On Earth, 99% of glacial ice is contained within vast ice sheets, also called continental glaciers, in the polar regions. But glaciers may be found in mountain ranges on every continent other than the Australian mainland. They are, in fact, on New Zealand, though, just not Australia. With more than 7,000 known glaciers, Pakistan actually has more glacial ice than any other country outside of the polar regions, which is quite interesting. I would not have guessed that Pakistan, outside of the polar regions, would have had the most, but apparently they have over 7,000 glaciers. Now that is quite a bit of ice. Question number 5. What common kitchen item is often used to season food and is chemically known as sodium chloride? Sodium chloride, also known as salt. In common usage, salt is a mineral composed primarily of sodium chloride. When used in food, especially at table in ground form in dispensers, it is more formally called table salt. Salt is essential for life in general, and saltiness is one of the basic human tastes. Salt is one of the oldest and most ubiquitous food seasonings and is known to uniformly improve the taste perception of food, including otherwise unpalatable food. So, once again, sodium chloride, also known as salt. Question number 6. What is the smallest denomination of United States currency in circulation? And that is the cent or the penny. The cent, the United States 1 cent coin, which is often called the penny, is a unit of currency equaling 1/100th of a United States dollar. It has been the lowest face value physical unit of U.S. currency since the abolition of the half cent in 1857. Now, fun fact, the Lincoln penny, so the penny that we're all familiar with, of course, has Lincoln's face on it. So the Lincoln penny was actually the first time that a president had been used on a coin. It was introduced for the first time in 1909 on his 100th birthday. Now, prior to that, the public had actually strongly opposed using portraits on coins because it stemmed back to the European tradition. But I suppose if there's anyone that could break that concern with the European tradition, if there's anyone that deserved that honor, I suppose Lincoln is a pretty good option. So, once again, that is the 1 cent, the penny, and that is the smallest denomination of currency in the United States. Question number 7. What is the largest desert in Africa, known for its vast sand dunes and stunning landscapes? And that desert is the Sahara. The Sahara, or the Sahara, is a desert on the African continent. With an area of 3,600,000 square miles, roughly 9,200,000 square kilometers, it is the largest hot desert in the world and the third largest desert overall, smaller only than the deserts of Antarctica and northern Arctic. Now, fun fact, the Sahara actually used to be lush and green. It was home to a variety of plants and animals. The change from this lush green, rain-swept grassland to desert actually came approximately 5,000 years ago. This came due to a gradual change in the tilt of the Earth. Now, as the tilt of the Earth continues to change, it will likely tilt back to a point where the Sahara will once again become a green grassland. But as of right now, it is the largest desert in Africa, and that desert once again is called the Sahara. Moving on to question number 8. What is the coldest and windiest continent on Earth? And that continent is Antarctica. Antarctica is Earth's southernmost and least populated continent. Situated almost entirely south of the Antarctic Circle and surrounded by the Southern Ocean, also known as the Antarctic Ocean, by the way, Antarctica contains the geographic South Pole. Now, Antarctica is the fifth largest continent and is roughly 40% larger than Europe. It has an area of about 5.5 million square miles, which is equivalent to about 14 million square kilometers. Antarctica is a place of extremes. It is the coldest, the highest, the driest, and the windiest continent on Earth. Now, I pulled that sentence from a pretty reliable source, and I had to find out what it meant by the highest. I did not know that it was the highest continent on Earth. And what that means is that it simply has the highest average elevation compared to any other continent, which is quite fascinating. That's something that I did not know. So, once again, that is Antarctica, the coldest and windiest, and also the highest continent on Earth. Question number 9. What is the oldest national park in the United States? And that national park is Yellowstone National Park. Yellowstone National Park is a national park located in the western United States, largely in the northwest corner of Wyoming and extending into Montana and Idaho. It was established by the 42nd U.S. Congress with the Yellowstone National Park Protection Act, and it was signed into law by President Ulysses S. Grant on March 1st, 1872. Yellowstone was the first national park in the United States and is also widely held to be the first national park in the entire world. Now, it has been probably 15 years since I was last in Yellowstone National Park, but I was truly blown away by its beauty, and really I was blown away by the amount of animals that you see. The megafauna there, the elk, the bear, the deer, the moose. It's absolutely breathtaking. Oh, of course, the buffalo. Who can forget the buffalo? And so if you have not yet been to Yellowstone National Park, the first national park, I could not recommend it more. Moving on to our final question of the day, question number 10. What is the term used for the feathers on archery arrows? And that term is fletching. Fletching is the fin-shaped aerodynamic stabilization device that is attached to arrows, bolts, darts, or javelins, and are typically made from light, semi-flexible material such as feathers or bark. Now, modern arrows are typically equipped with plastic fletching instead. Something interesting that I learned is that in English archery, the male feather, which comes from a rooster, is used on the outside of the arrow, while the other two stabilizing feathers are from a female or a hen, which is of course used on the other side, which is kind of maybe not a fun fact, but just something kind of interesting that I found. So, with that, that will conclude this round of My Daily Trivia. Now, if you found this round to be a bit too simple, well, I encourage you to check in tomorrow. Tune in on Tuesday. It's going to be a little bit more difficult. Of course, if you found this episode to be a bit too challenging for your taste, I encourage you to check in anyway. You never know, you might surprise yourself, and you might even learn something along the way. As always, we want to encourage you to tell your friends, tell your family about our show. We're trying to grow the community here at My Daily Trivia, make this the best trivia show on podcasts. I want to thank each of you again for listening to My Daily Trivia. I'm your host, Danny, and I will see all of you tomorrow.